Do we have replays today? Okay. Sorry.
And a pleasant Sunday to you. I'm Jim Byers along with Rick Lee from Lone Star Park at Grand Prairie. And Rick, obviously the weather has taken an interesting turn today. It was predicted, and it's liable to be wet for a while, but we're off the turf, sloppy. I know I adjusted a little bit. We'll see how much you adjusted. It's going to be an 8-race card. Got a big carryover in the 6-shooter, and we'll see how different opportunities when races switch surfaces and whatnot.
Yeah, and with the 6-shooter, that stuff, when we shorten our field sizes down, it's easier to hit, but the odds of hitting it by yourself diminish greatly.
So we'll see how it all shakes out. There's a high five on the first race, $1,812 in the carryover. A couple of scratches out of the opener, which is an off-the-turf 5/8 on the main track sprint now for non-winners of 3. Scratch the 7, Golden Heat, and the 9, Love to Sing.
Yeah, and I made my best long shot, the 6, Gradester, when it was on turf, and I'm sticking with him on the main track here. He's still 6-1 in the very early wagering. He's won 2 consecutive races on the main track at 5/8 of a mile. Both of those races were off the turf type races. The last one here on May 1st was on a muddy track. Set a very fast pace, opened up a 5-length lead to mid-stretch, and just did hold on to a fast closing Chris's Wildcat. Moves up into a non-winners of 3. Again, coming off the turf, his proven wet track ability and his really quickness this gelding has. I'm going to go with Gradester to post a little upset. The 2-horse, Cardiac Kitten, is my second selection. He's been running on the main track at Oaklawn Park, so that's always a very strong credential. Steve Asmussen trains this horse. Steve's having his typical outstanding season. And this horse does have enough early speed to be in a good striking position turning for home. My third pick will be the 1, Soldier Boy, for Austin Gustafson. Much like Cardiac Kitten, comes here from Hot Springs after a solid meeting there. He did clear his non-winners of 2 condition on March 27th at Oaklawn, caught a wet track at today's condition last time out, and after showing speed, faded a little bit. He does not have a real good wet track record. However, Austin Gustafson is training this horse for the very first time, and it just seems like horses are moving up for him. Do also note David Cabrera is in the irons, and he's off to a fantastic start.
Well, it's going to take some combination of that for me for this horse to win, just because his Tomlinson number in the daily racing form indicates he should like an off-track, but the off-track, at least in Hot Springs, I don't think he could have hated it much more. Now, obviously, he's not facing the same horses here that he faced there. It's a different type of off-track as well, but I took a pass on him. It also, there was a song in the early 60s by the Shirelles, Soldier Boy, not a favorite of mine, and I've got it stuck in my head, and so I resent that. So I threw him in for a 4th pick. I like Gradester, too. I actually like him more now that the race is off the turf. They're going to have to come and catch him. And, it's only 5/8 of a mile. He was a very good winner last time on a muddy sealed track. Connections are hot. I'm throwing the 8 Destiny Way, who I did not originally like at all. But if you go down to a muddy sealed race at Oaklawn in a really high purse non-winners of 3 allowance against Hidden Scroll, who a couple of years ago was on the Triple Crown Trail. Now things didn't work out, and he was well beaten in that race, but he was 8th out of 12. Since then, he's been against really good Arkansas breds in 2 races, and he does have 2 wins on off tracks. I'm going to give Best Destiny Way my 2nd pick, Cardiac Kitten a 3rd pick here, and we'll see how things shake out.
Yeah, if your pick, Destiny Way, breaks good. In races he's broke well. He's earned really strong buyer figures, so he's kind of an interesting horse. Like you, I didn't look at him much on turf, but he's real interesting today.
On to the 2nd race from the second race, a non-winners of 2, Texas-bred Claimer Scratch, number 1, Brother Robert. That leaves a field of 6. You know, I had a really tough time between the top 3 in here. Theorist, O-Snap, and On the Honor Roll I see as clearly the best options for me, and I had a hard time deciding, so I wound up taking what I think is the highest price in O-Snap, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
They'll come out of the same race, too.
Yeah, on the honor roll. I mean, if he was 1 for 8, we'd love him.
Exactly.
But
that's why that's why I made him second.
Yeah, he's 1 for 31. He looks like he also found a field. He is my top selection. Those 1 for 31s, I don't tend to like them much, but I think he'll make the lead in here. He catches a sloppy track. It's going to be way wetter than any track I think he's probably ever raced on. That could be good or it could be bad. But again, last time out, he finished second. The 9-5 favorite for Mindy Willis got him. So just really good for him. Just the fact I think he might be on an easy lead. I'm going to give him one more chance for the 31st time. Let's go to the 2, Theorist. From Eichelberry to Cabrera, so from one good rider to, a really good rider. Was a nice, clear maiden winner at Houston and came up here to Lone Star Park at this exact same condition, finished third. He ran close to him on the honor roll in the early going, finished 1 position behind. Again, very logical for Broberg. O-Snap, I did pick this one third. I could see him winning, just getting a dream trip. There's a lot of speed, and he has good speed himself. But I think he'll probably get out sprinted in the first, half mile, and then he should be in a great position. Luca Raleigh, who's mentioned before, newcomer to Lone Stars, had a phenomenal meeting, and I'll just throw in Moro Trump just because the pace could be extremely fast, and if that's the case, Moro Trump, who did win here opening weekend from off the pace, might just get a dream trip.
Yeah. I'm with you on that aspect. O-Snap, I mean, he's by far not my most emphatic pick of the day. But that day, you really wanted to be up front on May 1st when he last ran. A couple of horses circled in from the outside, but you wanted to be inside. You wanted to be up front. He wasn't up front that day, but he was inside. Still didn't do a whole lot. Theorist was definitely in the wrong part of the track on May 1st in that race. He was 4 wide. Theorist, though, they tried to get him into a race here a week ago, and he was a vet scratch, not on the racetrack, but pre-race. And I just don't really dig picking horses fresh off a vet scratch a week before. I mean, I'm sure they're fine to run. If they weren't, they wouldn't be in the race. But so I went O-Snap over On the Honor Roll and Theorist.
Yeah, one thing that might hurt Theorist, and this is just something just watching races, a lot of times when it rains hard all day, there's standing water on the inner part of the track, and jockeys always trying to get off, and Theorist might end up being pinned down there. And, it's just a theory, but I would prefer to be out in the middle.
Yeah. Now, it's a good horse, name-wise, to apply a theory to, since he's named Theorist. On to the third. Start of the 6-shooter. Before we get to the video here, we have a carryover that's getting quite massive in the 6-shooter. 6-shooter starts in today's third, $126,596. Now, we're going to go back to December and show my second pick, number 6, Frankly Energized. He's going to be number 6 in this race. Let's watch this race at Zia. This is an 870 race with quarter horses and thoroughbreds. Now, my pick has a black cap, white silks, kind of in behind that leading quartet of horses. He's angling about 4 or 5 wide right now in the stretch. He's 5 wide at the furlong pole. That is highly energized, or frankly energized, rather. Look at him pick it up and lay him down here late. This is an 870 race. And unlike some 870s where you see them just stagger in, I thought the horses that ran second, third, and fourth, I mean, I don't know which ones of those were quarter horses and which were thoroughbreds, but they didn't look like they were completely stopping to a walk. And he closed good ground. Now, granted, he has run a number of times since then. Most recently at Turf Paradise. He was with a high percentage trainer there. He's with a high percentage trainer here. I have a feeling that he might run a decent race. That being said, and I came really close to picking him on top, I went and fell for the favorite, Good Judgment, who has never been on and off track. But we'll see how he does today.
Yeah, I mean, Good Judgment's got a really strong buyer speed figure last time out. Drew the 12 hole, 6 wide throughout, narrowly missed on April 24th at a level a little bit higher than this one. The runner-up came back, Shifty Henry, and ran a 91 buyer in his winning effort. Not only did he come back, the fourth-place finisher in that same race came back to win. He did win an open allowance race at Houston just 3 races ago. And he drew really comfortably outside. So even though he's never been on a wet track, if he can duplicate his last race or that huge buyer he earned at Houston January 16th, he's going to be tough to beat. The 5 Cowboy Karma for trainer Steve Asmussen. He ran for $10,000 at the same claiming price just 2 starts back at Houston and rallied to finish second. That was a really nice race. Opening weekend here at Lone Star Park, he was in a little tougher, broke last, and just managed a minor rally there. But Steve's got him spotted really well today. His only race we see recently in the mud was a 2-turn race, so I think you can probably draw a line through that, even though he's had 3 wet track races, and none of them have been near as good as his fast track. Frankly Energized, who we just saw the video of, I was real interested in him as well. At Zia Park, running 6 1/2 furlongs, he wins, just decisively, earns a strong buyer figure of 84. Since then, he's moved from Justin Evans Barn, who's a high percentage trainer out there, to Todd Fincher, who's having a really strong meeting. He hasn't had a work here of any note other than a slow breeze May 7th, but it looks like his best race is good enough, and you got to like a horse who has 12 wins in only 35 races.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that attracted me to him. And this is an Oklahoma bred, too, who found his way to the Southwest, which is kind of interesting. So I took good judgment over him. Cowboy Karma, a lot of respect for him. The one thing I would say in looking at his off-track races, the 3 that show up on my form, they were all against better. I mean, they were all against, high claimers at Oaklawn, or an optional claimer at Fairgrounds. Maybe he didn't really like the level of competition more than the off-track. But the 0 for 3 record and well beaten in those 3 races is a little scary. But I used him third. And Cayman's Cobra back in a sprint for connections that have been hot in limited opportunities is my 4th pick. On to the 4th. Scratch the 7, Dorita's Heart out of the 4th race. A mile for maiden claiming fillies. I think the top 3 in here, as I see it, Eclectic Soul, I Leave the Light On, Indie Lover, all have good credentials. Again, it's a good competitive race.
Yeah, this was a tough one. I went with Eclectic Soul. He's got a few things that I like. Horses that have been running consistently in maiden special weight races, dropping into maiden 20. I typically like that. He's been on a tougher circuit being in Florida. His only race on the main track in his career was at Keeneland, where he actually battled, for over 6 furlongs and then faded late. Gets Lasix for the first time. 2 nice works, especially the one May 9th was a really nice work for new trainer Ronnie Cravens. I just feel like he's the way to go, but not a lot of confidence. The 5 Indie Lover, who has finished in the money 3 of 6 races. You do note his only time he ran on the main track here at Lone Star Park was his career debut last August, and he was narrowly beaten, finishing second. So I believe off that you could say he probably likes the surface here. He's done nothing, or she has done nothing but run against maiden special weight fillies in her career. Again, a very helpful drop in class, and I do think she likes the main track, she likes turf. So I'm just going to draw a conclusion that she doesn't need a specific type of racetrack. She'll probably run well in the wet. And then let's go to the one I'll Leave the Light On. Finished second last time after breaking last, and this filly for Broberg has a tendency. She's been her own worst enemy.
Yep.
She tends to break last every time, and still manages to get up there and get a little piece of the pie. This is her first time around 2 turns, so after 4 straight sprints going 2 turns, perhaps a bit of a sluggish start. She'll have plenty of time to make up the ground. And again, David Cabrera's in the saddle.
Yeah, and what you were saying about maybe the inside part of the track collecting some water, I mean, if she does get out poorly, he'll be able to pick his path, I would think. I doubt she'll be, even though coming out of sprints, she hasn't been showing that much speed. I kind of doubt, she'll be pinned down in there in a field of 6. So we'll see about that. But, yeah, I took her second in here behind Eclectic Soul. I mean, the things I liked about her are the same things you mentioned. Cravens has good numbers. Ronnie Cravens with the horse's first time out. This horse does come off a little bit of freshening from Tampa Bay. Tries the main track, which she's only been on the main track one time, and that was at Keeneland, and was well beaten. But the winner of that race, by the way, Villanelle, I looked her up, is a Brad Cox trainee who's 2 for 6 lifetime, and turned out to win an allowance the next time out at Churchill. So that might have been a pretty good heat that she was in her only try on the main surface. And then I Leave the Light On just on the stretch out factor for Broberg. I mean, this filly's been sprinting like she really wants more distance. And Indy Lover third, but a pretty close third. And seriously, Sassy is intriguing to me as well for Donnie Von Hemel. Again, that Tomlinson number, which takes the sire and the grandsire, and if they have an appreciable number of offspring that have run on the mud, they come up with a formulation for their likelihood to like it in their first 3 races. If they've raced more than 3 times on the mud, they say you can kind of ignore the Tomlinson number. But, you know, this filly ran pretty well on a sealed track at Oaklawn. The sealed is the important part for me because that's what they're hitting. And at least made up ground. Didn't earn a big buyer, but last time out, so.
Yeah, but it'll probably only take, low 50s to win. So
I would
third
think,
time out, first time 2 turns. She's an interesting field. I'd certainly have to use her in my multi-race wagers.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, the top 3 I thought were a little bit above, but their above isn't necessarily that great to where, you know, maybe we'll see Donnie K and or his barn in the winner's circle.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
If things turn out that way. Odd to the 5th. Off the turf here. Good filly allowance. Scratch the 2 L's Town out of this one. And unlike some of these races today, there's a number of these horses in here that seem to have an affinity for an off track. But I don't know if it'll matter with this main track only in this race.
Yeah, I went with the 7, the main track only, Raintree Starlet. Very impressive at Oaklawn. 2 just monster wins in very fast times. The important race was her February 11th, just because it was on a muddy sealed track. Won by nearly 9 lengths. 89 buyer, came back and runs at 92 buyer figure. And then went up to Will Rogers Downs, ran in a stake race there. Once again, a clear winner. So just off her terrific early speed, tremendous form right now, unbeaten this year. Raintree Starlet, Ramon Vasquez, regular riders aboard. So a lot to like there. I stuck with Quick as my second selection. She's in such good form. We knew she was going to be, solid favorite on turf. I have trouble believing J.R. Caldwell, wouldn't have left her or would have scratched her if he didn't think she handled it. She has been in the money in 7 of 15 races on the main track. So if you go through her record in her career, she's actually ran several good races on the main track. So I'm going to stick with Quick for a second. An Hour, Lost Love, who's unbeaten in 2 races on a wet track. Last time out at Fairgrounds, finished second. That was on turf. But again, really good form. Is a stake winner on and off track. That happened as a 2-year-old at Fairgrounds. So she's always shown an affinity for the main track. And again, unbeaten in 2 wet track opportunities.
Yeah, my main concern with her in originally handicapping this race was she seems like such a one-dimensional front runner, and the way the race was originally constructed, there's a ton of speed, as you might expect, in what was originally a 5/8 turf race. I didn't know if she could sit at all and rally. I'm not really sure about that, but I have her second as well here behind Raintree Starlet. My third pick is the 3 Bernie, who is 1 for 1 on an off track, and that came at Gulfstream in the Azalea, which is a non-graded stake back on July 4th of last year. She had that field over a barrel. She was 7-10 and won in very nice fashion. And Stuart Elliott has picked up the mount on her. I just opened up the changes on my phone, and Diodoro had Vasquez on the main track only and Bernie, and he has put Stuart Elliott on Bernie. I would consider her, if you're thinking that Raintree Starlet can be vulnerable at all. Quick, I still have as 4th. Maybe I'm jumping off her bandwagon too fast, but, I really liked her when it was on turf. And, like you say, She has run some good races on dry, fast tracks. So we'll see how she fares.
Yeah, I mean, in the past performances, we see nothing but turf. It probably would have been good. Open up Formulator, just looked at all of her career races.
That's where the Formulator is good. You just click show
good.
all lines, and, you know, if a horse has raced 100 times, you can see the 100th race back. On to the 6th. Scratch the 2, Painted Lover. The 6th is a maiden $7,500 claimer here and 1 mile.
Yeah, and I like to go sprint to route. I mean, it's one of my favorite angles, assuming they're not like the Broberg horse earlier today that breaks bad all the time. But, but the 3 Bandy's Map kind of fits a profile I've always liked. Ships down from Oaklawn. You can see, though, last year as a 3-year-old, she ran once here at Lone Star Park in a maiden 20 and was narrowly beaten there. That was a really good effort, running 7 furlongs. This year, he's had 3 good sprint races coming into this race, all against a lot better than today's competition. Drew favorably, certainly bred top and bottom of his pedigree to want to go around 2 turns. I'm a little surprised they haven't tried that before, but nevertheless, on the stretch out, I'm going to go with the Steve Asmussen trainee Bandy's Map. The 4-horse Cyber Monday is my next selection. Went around 2 turns for the first time at Oaklawn April 25th and ran a much improved race. As a matter of fact, had the lead in mid-stretch, gave way late, finishing second. It was still a clear length back to third. You can make a case that this horse is improving with each and every start. Greg Green, who's already saddled 2 winners on the meeting here, a new trainer at Lone Star Park. They both were turf sprints, but, you know, this horse is in good form coming out of Hot Springs. The 6, that dude, is my next selection. I know those races at Hot Springs, he was beaten by several lengths, but he earned the fastest Beyer figure in the field on April 15th when he finished 6th in a maiden 10. That was his only 2-turn race of the season as well. So now back at 2 turns, you know, a really good number. It's 0 for 3 on a wet track, but he did earn that 49 on a wet track. Yeah. So, again, will a 49 be good enough to win this race? I'm going to say it'll be close.
Yeah, I think so. That would exceed the Beyer par, and Alan Milligan's been firing here. He had a really nice winner yesterday in Cascade King, who came from way back and made a really nice rally to just get up late. Bandy's Map, my top pick as well. Cyber Monday is my second pick. That was an interesting race on April 25th because it wasn't a fast pace, it doesn't appear, but he opened up a lonely lead, and then I think it was Kelsey Haar came up the inside with a horse and ran right up inside of him and actually wrested the lead away, and you could see the rider that day, Arietta, look over like, who's coming at me mid-backstretch? Yeah. And then he volleyed with this horse for a while, put the Kelsey Haar horse away, and had that lead, and then Moon in the Sky just swept by them all. I almost showed this race as a video race, but the interesting part was the run up the backstretch because he really got hooked in his first try around 2 turns and ran really well. I really gave thought to picking Cyber Monday on top, but decided that the overall body of work with Bandy's Map was just a little bit too much to pass on. So I went 3-4, and Gage Has a Gray probably will be leading for a while, I would think. Comes out of a pretty good effort here, opening weekend at this level. Came up empty late, going 5.5, but puts blinkers on, which, interestingly, for Danny Pish is not a high percentage move, but that could be a statistical anomaly. I think Gage Has a Gray. You know, sometimes these sloppy tracks come up speed favoring, and you think he might be on the lead. I think he might just have to ship out of there and see how long he leads.
I think the revving horse, Revving It Up maybe, or whatever his name is, he's the only one coming out of sprints where he's been forwardly placed in most of them. But I think if they send away from there, Gage Has a Gray probably makes the lead.
On to race 7. Now, we've got a video here, and we really don't need to show video for a horse that's going to be odds-on like quarterback Dak, but I want to show it anyway. This is a single opportunity for me. We're going to go back to April 25th at Hot Springs. He's in blue silks here with white sleeves. He's number 5, and he's going to come circling up on the outside. The comment was great in the form. Loomed 4 wide and flattened. I mean, here he is on the outside, right-handed urging. He's moving up to this leader here, Catholic Gilt. And he's not going to get the Catholic Gilt. In fact, he gets tagged for second, quarterback Dak does, by Handy, this gray on the outside. But I like the way Dak hung in there. I mean, he's well clear of the rest. I think he was still trying. I mean, he did flatten through the stretch. There's no question about that. But he made a really powerful move and earned a nice buyer, and that was a $50,000 non-2. Now he's facing Texas breds. You know, if he likes the off track, which he has demonstrated a fondness for it, I think he's going to be really tough to beat.
Yeah, I made him 4-5, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, he's run two terrific races in two different races on a wet track. That last race in Hot Springs, you know, stamped him as clearly the one to beat. Let's go to the one-horse Ghoster, my next selection, who last time out won by 11 lengths. I know it was an off-the-turf field, so it was a little bit easier spot. He was bet down to 2-5. You could also make the case, though, he's a 3-year-old, lightly raced, trying 2 turns. They took blinkers off in that race, too. Maybe that made a nice difference as well. Has a huge number for liking an off-track, so we'll see if that holds out or not. And then let's go to the 6-horse Blings Bellwether, who did beat Ghoster in an earlier confrontation, and that was when Blings Bellwether was making his career debut at Houston, going a mile, maiden special weight company. Then they tried sprinting this horse, Derek Caldwell. I'm talking about finished 4th, earned a very strong buyer figure of 65. And then up here at Lone Star Park, was a disappointment, 5-1 against open allowance foes, and just was so one-paced, finished 5th. Now back in with his friends, Texas breds, and he stands a chance to show marked improvement.
Yeah, I like Blings Bellwether second. I mean, you know, when you take a look at who he's faced in his career, I mean, that second start, the Groovy, I mean, right off that maiden win, he faces Silence Doro and Bobby Brinkley and Island Sun, and he wasn't disgraced in that race at almost 20-1. Comes right back against Bobby Brinkley and Octal Gali here, going a mile. Gets a taste again of 2 turns. I gave him the look for second here behind quarterback Dak. Ghoster I have respect for. And, you know, I worried yesterday about an Asmussen that Gold Vermilion that had raced back in March and had no work since. Well, Ghoster has gone into hiding as well after a March 24 romping win. He has no works either. But Asmussen won yesterday with Gold Vermilion. He won 3 on the card yesterday. You can't question Steve's barn, I think. I think that's the key. I can't question them.
I know there's a rule about, you know, like 6 weeks if you haven't raced in so long. How you got to show a work. I don't know what the rule. I need to check into that.
I think with quarters at 60 days, I think you have had to have a work or a race within 60 days.
That's something we need to check into, I think.
But I think this one probably gets in just under the wire, at least versus the quarter horse rule, which I think is 60 days. But, you know, the Ghoster situation, if he had shown a little bit of activity, he does show that since we're talking about the Tomlinson numbers, you know, his Tomlinson number is tailor-made for a horse like this. He's never been on an off track.
Right.
Once they establish their ability, they say you can toss the Tomlinson numbers. But, you know, this horse gets a 469. That's among, if not the biggest number of the day for prospective off track.
For sure.
So, still, Dak is going to be tough to beat. Dak is going to be able to scramble away from this bunch, I think.
Yeah, and running here in Texas, odds will even be shorter due to the name.
Exactly,
I would think, like Jeter in New York, that horse. He was always overbet.
If they had a horse named shortstop Jeter, well, you're saying there was a Jeter.
There was a Jeter. Yeah. He was always overbet in New York. Andy Serling used to talk about that all the time.
I think I remember that.
He tried to bet against him, actually, because he always thought he'd be an underlay.
On to the 8th. Bunch of scratches out of this off the turfer, and there's no high five on the 8th race now because of the field size. Take out the 2 Nomas Tequila. Scratch the Irish filly number 4 Believe in Beauty. Scratch both the 6 and 7 Mid-Year and Sister Kitten, and scratch the 11 Gastown. And you know, I'm picking a little bit of a shot in here. We'll see if it's a shot when all is said and done. Obviously, the line made for turf, but. Before we talk about that, let's see who you ended up going with.
Well, yeah, after shaking things up, I went with Eternal
That's who
Endeavor.
I have, too.
Okay, well, no surprise, I guess. His lack of willingness to win a lot of races, I guess that's my biggest concern. I like horses that are in good form. He's finished in the money in 4 consecutive races, draws inside, has raced well in 2 wet track appearances. So, you know, to me, for Diodoro, that's another reason maybe to be a little concerned. And this barn is cold. I mean, I picked too many of his horses, I think, so far this meet, because I'm used to him winning at 26%, and he's really struggling right now. But Eternal Endeavor's my pick here. The 3 is now my second, Spanx Legacy. who at Houston, his most recent start was very competitive in an allowance field, just like this one. Same distance, 1 mile. One race on an off track, and that was her career debut way back at Remington, and finished a really good second. I also like the fact that it shows 2 really nice works, too, for Asmussen here at Lone Star Park since arriving from Houston. So Spanx Legacy is my second selection. Then I went out to the 8, Flat Out in Foxy, whose form is okay. I mean, was beaten only 2 lengths in a 1 mile race at Oaklawn, just 2 starts back in a starter allowance race. And first time Gustafson, so I just got to respect that. The horses are moving up for Austin, and David Cabrera, again, who's been riding a lot for Austin. I'm just going to, on the fact this one might improve enough to maybe even win the race.
Yeah, I didn't really give her much of a shot as it was originally configured. I've got her second now. I think the Gustafson-Cabrera combo, combined with some pretty decent races on off surfaces last year at Hot Springs, I think this Arkansas bred might get might have a bigger shot at it. I like Eternal Endeavor as well. You know, having started in racing in Southern California, my eye is drawn towards Southern California form. And her form, especially if you go back last year and maybe the year before, is pretty good. I'm a little bit of a statute of limitations guy. I mean, once they get too far back there, I start to discount what they did. But, you know, in her case, I mean, she's still been in pretty good form, even though those 12.5 levels in California they're not the bottom, but I think you can see the bottom from there at least. But that's still a pretty good level. I took her over Flat Out and Foxy, and then Spanx Legacy as well obviously merits a lot of consideration. I have her as a third pick. She's one of those that I could see her beating me or running up the track. I'm just not sure I get a good handle on her. I do think the trouble that she had last time at Houston was not overwhelmingly significant. She did have some trouble. She was bumped and floated, and the horse that bumped her, Tiz One Fee, was disqualified. I just didn't think the trouble was that bad. But, so there you go.
Yeah, I do like people that are here that don't come often, I mean, or people out in simulcast land. I mean, when we get a track like this, which is pretty unique, pay attention to how horses are running in each path. Is speed holding, speed just not lasting whatsoever? Is the 5-path best? Is the inside? And really take advantage of that because situations like this don't come up all that often.
Yeah. Chance, a slightly different chance as a way to make money. Got good carryovers good carryover in the 6-shooter, a little carryover of 1,800 plus in the first race Super High 5. Rick, good luck. Be safe getting back home.
Yep. Thank you.
And best of luck. Thanks for joining us today, and enjoy your Sunday.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this Sunday at Lone Star.